UK's official withdrawal process and negotiations. After 20 months of talks, European leaders approved Britain's divorce deal. However, the agreement is deeply unpopular up and down the country. On Monday, the highest court in the EU ruled that Britain can unilaterally cancel Brexit. But Prime Minister May still insists the country will leave the bloc on March the 29th next year, as the 2016 referendum expressed the democratic will of the people. We have two correspondents covering this story. Jonah Hull is outside the Parliament in London for us. We'll speak to him in just a moment. First, let's go to Brussels. And our correspondent, Dominic Kane. Dominic, beyond empathy, beyond kind words today, what can she realistically get?
Cold, hard reality, Peter, which is that this is the one deal that is acceptable to the European Union. Frankly, it's the one deal that's unacceptable, it seems, to the British Parliament. The point here is that hearing Mr. Juncker say those comments in the European Parliament, the applause that he got from Euro MPs is mirrored to a large extent by European leaders too. Certainly by Angela Merkel. When Prime Minister May meets Chancellor Merkel in Berlin, it will be a very friendly meeting. But the substance of it is that Angela Merkel has publicly said that there will be no other deal than this one. So we end up in a situation where Theresa May is making this last-ditch, as it were, tour around European capitals, trying to seek a form of words that might placate people back in London. But she must know that it's very unlikely that there'll be any realistic movement, any movement that might be acceptable to the people that matter in this situation, which are the people in the UK Parliament. Meeting Mr. Rutte in The Hague this morning. Well, the Dutch Prime Minister is someone who is seen as being, if not necessarily outright Eurosceptic, certainly who's not in favour of any more deeper European Union, as it were. But what can he really give her? Nothing particularly. The same with Angela Merkel, and as we've been hearing from Mr. Juncker, that is very unlikely that there'll be nothing from him. He will be meeting her at 18:15 GMT, so this evening, meeting her here in Brussels. But as I say, the reality is it's a cold, hard reality. No change from Brussels, which means the onus is back on Theresa May to try to find a form of words that would be acceptable in London.
Dominic, thanks very much. Live now to London and our correspondent Jonah Hull. So Jonah, there's the emergency debate today. There's no vote, but the vote in theory could still take place at a later date.
Could take place, one assumes, Peter, will take place at a later date. The question, of course, is when. There is some suggestion that an outside deadline in terms of legislation already passed through the House of Commons behind me is the 21st of January. It's unclear whether that is hard and fast. Theresa May is going to come back. She'll be in Brussels, presumably for the EU summit meeting on Thursday and Friday. And then she will have to show her cards to her MPs here, or probably her cabinet first, in terms of what it is she's been able to secure and whether she decides that there is still yet more time or more room for talk between the summit and the eventual vote. We simply don't know. At this point, nobody in Westminster has any idea, even quite what it is she's hoping to achieve by all of this. Will there be a vote? Almost inevitably. Will it be sufficient, the deal that she returns, to placate MPs in her own party and in the House to get them to vote for this deal? Very hard to see. MPs in her own party and in the House to get them to vote for this deal? Very hard to see how on earth that is possible, because an awful lot of them, don't forget, really want to see the back of this backstop. They want no more to do with the backstop. They're not interested in reassurances. They simply don't want it to exist. They see it as a constitutional trap. They see it as the UK taking EU rules without any say in making them. They see it as limiting this country's ability to strike trade deals outside of the European Union. It's very hard to see how Theresa May comes back from this.
Jonah, thanks very much. Okay, let's get more on that for you. Mark Garnett is a senior lecturer in British politics at Lancaster University. He joins us live from Lancaster. Mark Garnett, if she goes to Europe, that's where she is today, she comes back with nothing, which we think that's what she'll probably come back with, because there's not much of a difference between guarantees and assurances, and they've said, we're not going to give you any more than you've got already on the table, she still has to have the vote, which she will still lose.
Yes, and well, I don't think that you have to really go back to 1938 and Neville Chamberlain's attempts to get a deal with Germany and flying over to Germany repeatedly. You have to go back that far, really, to see a Prime Minister in a more difficult situation. And in fact, you might say that Mrs May is in an even more difficult situation. She's caught between institutions with incompatible demands, and everywhere you look inside the British House of Commons, you see reasons why she will not get a compromise deal through.
And people are speculating this morning that the vote, when it comes, might be delayed until January. If it is delayed that long, because of course parliamentarians have got to have their Christmas recess, does that make a crashing out or a no-deal Brexit more likely?